Great view of the Nordstrom Tower. It's still under construction, but you can see how it's really improved. And it's really almost done, and it's very, very impressive to look at. This is just a little closer view of the Nordstrom Tower. Just goes up and up and up. Just a beautiful piece of architecture. You can see the neighboring buildings around it. This is Columbus Circle, right at the intersection of 59th Street, Central Park West, or 59th Street and 8th Avenue. Different names for the same buildings, or the same street. And this is the Time Warner building, right nearby. That was an interesting project, because for years there was like a 15-story flat top building that was here, and they couldn't figure out what to do with it. It's called the Coliseum. And then finally New York City and a group of investors and other people decided to build the Time Warner Center. Here's just another closer view of the Nordstrom Tower. Just one angle of the view. But a closer and closer view allows good perspective to see what might be going on. They have made a tremendous amount of progress. There is an even closer view from 60th and Broadway, where I'm doing the filming right now, just to give everyone this really nice perspective. And you can see the extensive work that's being done. And as everyone knows already, it's going to be one of the tallest towers in North America. You can see here the nice detail at the very top. The nice detail with the glass work. It's really an architectural marvel for them to do these things. All the planning that's involved, all the future thought that is involved. You have to plan years ahead of time so that once a building is done, it's an appropriate building for a certain location. Here's just another view of the Nordstrom Tower, and you can see how it's really going up. And this is just the view from 58th Street and Broadway. Is the ground floor of the Nordstrom Tower. And then just showing more of the extensive work on it. Just a closer view, but just from a different angle of the tower. You can see the extensive work that has been done and is being done. And here we'll get a closer look at everything so that people can see the kind of material, the kind of effort that's being put into this building. Another chance to see another angle of the amazing work that's being done on the Nordstrom Tower. Many times people from other parts of the United States and other parts of the world just don't have this opportunity to see what's going on. And you can see the extensive development that's happening. I'm sure Nordstrom is very anxious to get this store started. And you can see here also that where they have that black covering of the building, they're going to be putting about 3 stories of Nordstrom stores, of the Nordstrom store on Broadway. And it makes sense because Nordstrom really wants to have a very large area for people to shop. And my theory is that other building with the black canopy covering the first 3 floors is eventually going to have probably the first 7 to 9 floors being used by Nordstrom. It just makes sense that Nordstrom is going to do that. You can see here the great architecture. Of the first floor. There's a lot to see, and again, remember, the first 7 stories of this Nordstrom Tower are going to be dedicated to the Nordstrom store. When they made the deal, they purchased the first 7 floors for themselves, and the first 7 floors are really like 2 floors, even though they call them a single floor per floor. But Nordstrom is a retailer. They need that space. And as I said, like the buildings next door, from 58th Street to 57th Street, they're all going to be used for the Nordstrom store. Nordstrom is smart. They know that they're going to make this into one of the stops that New Yorkers will do when they do shopping. And Nordstrom already opened up a men's store right nearby. So people have that option already. News is getting out, but when they open this up, it'll be really great. Now, it's very interesting seeing how they did this. Now, this is a art institute right next door to the Nordstrom Tower. They paid the Art Institute $25 million for the air rights and to be able to include this extra space that's on the building that they designed. So it's interesting seeing the extra space because it looks almost out of place when you see it. But it's extra space, it's valuable space. Office space that will be rented out, that'll be used, making the tower look much better than otherwise. Here's a view of the first floor, another view of the first floor. We'll take a look all the way up the tower to see what it looks like, to see what sort of progress they've been doing. You can see this great extra space they added on. It's fantastic for the building, fantastic for the tower. And it's really fascinating to see how they did this from an engineering standpoint. Like, you look at it and you think, how can they do this? But from an engineering standpoint, they do this for homes. They do this for other buildings too. So it's not unusual to have this happen like that. You can see that. It's beautiful seeing that. Chance to see all the great architecture here. Just an amazing job. Just amazing. And all the planning that was required to get this done and all the negotiation. It was amazing to see this. On the ground floor of the tower itself, you can see it just going up and up and up. It's really impressive to see the construction. take a closer look at the building itself at the top, because that alone is so impressive. Here you can see an even closer view of the building and the construction. Now what's impressive is taking a look down 57th Street. Now we'll do that so that everyone can take a look to see what the neighborhood looks like. So here we're looking east on 57th Street. This is Billionaires Row, and you can actually see some of the other buildings in the distance that make the name Billionaires Row. It's very impressive seeing all these buildings, seeing all the people too. Now you have to remember too, a lot of the apartments around here are just empty. Now if you want to send $10 million or $20 million out of your country, you just can't tell your government, I want to send $20 million to New York to put in my bank account. That's not going to work. You have to have a reason for sending millions of dollars to New York. And the reason is buying an apartment. Now we're looking west on 57th Street, and that's equally impressive. All the towers that are on the western side. You can see at night how it's all lit up. All nice to see. And that store you see all lit up is Nordstrom men's store. They recently did that because there was 50,000 square feet of space available. It was going to be right next to their store, and so they built that space out. And you can see here, this building here is having like the first 3 stories dedicated to Nordstrom. And as I said earlier, I would bet probably the first 9 stories of this building are going to be dedicated to Nordstrom eventually. Nordstrom will just take over the leases, or once the leases in the building are over, they'll lease out the space for themselves. It just makes absolute sense, because here you have the first 7 floors of this tower owned by Nordstrom. Wouldn't it make much more sense to also have extra space to make it contiguous, so that you could have one entire store on 57th and Broadway? For any store they would want that. And for people who shop, they would want that too, to have as much available as possible. And all of this that you're seeing here is going to be part of the Nordstrom store, including a couple stories above where they have this metal mesh in the front because it's a little set back. Nordstrom owns that also and is going to have part of their store there too. There's going to be so much they're going to be able to do with what they have done